while back, I made a video about everything that frustrated me about Monster Hunter World and that I did not want to see in Monster Hunter Wilds. A lot of little annoyances that added up to a whole lot of pain. A lot of you guys agreed with my criticisms, and some of you said I was nitpicking. And that's fine. We all come to games from different perspectives and different angles and different thresholds of annoyance and different tolerance levels. I will say that according to the comments, a lot of my criticisms really resonated with you guys. There were, however, many people who said, well, you're just Rise fanboy and you don't like Monster Hunter World, and why don't you criticize Monster Hunter Rise? You can't do it, can you? And my response to that was, no, I can't. I really can't. I don't have much to say about Rise that I don't like. The one thing that I think is done poorly in Rise is the anomaly grind. I think it's too long. I think it's too much of a grind to build a lot of endgame gear fully augmented. I think that's too much. I think Capcom went too far with that. However, gameplay wise, I think the game is amazing. Interface design is awesome, top notch. Everything about that game I love, except for the endgame grind. It's just too much. I should be able to get endgame stuff without having to do 10 to 20 quests per build that I want to make. That's obnoxious. However, I did say, I promised you guys I would make a video critiquing Monster Hunter Rise, but you guys would have to supply the criticisms because I don't have them. I really don't. But in fairness, I would allow you guys to tell me what's wrong with Monster Hunter Rise, and I will put your ideas out there. And maybe you'll win me over on some of these. I don't know. We'll find out. Now, it's not to say that your criticisms aren't valid, because critiques are by their nature subjective. We're criticizing a piece of art, and art is subjective. We are criticizing some things that could be considered objective, like interface design. Even with interface design, there's a lot of subjectivity to it. However, there are best practices in interface design that will please most people most of the time. And World failed to use a lot of those best practices, whereas Rise actually follows a lot of those best practices. So some things on a certain level can be assessed objectively in terms of best practices, but most critiques are going to be subjective. And so this video isn't to say whether or not I think your critiques are valid. I think all critiques are valid. It's to put your critiques out there and discuss them. I'm not here to refute your critiques. I may provide my perspective on your criticisms. Probably will. That's kind of why you watch my videos, to hear my perspective. But primarily, I want to present an opportunity for you guys to say what you need to say about Rise. So let's see what you guys had to say. I put up this community post. You guys want it? Here's your chance to get it. Post all your critiques, criticisms, things you don't like, annoy you, etc. about Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak in the comments here, and I'll make the video covering everything. Pretty simple. This is your video. You're welcome. First item. MattoHQ9JR. What I would criticize about Rise is that it's too much fun. But I'm German. Maybe that's why. Yeah. You're right. I agree. This Rise is too much fun. Sarcasm, seriousness. We're off to a great start. All right, guys, let's get real. Okay. We want real critiques. Zacharias Zatorian. I think Zacharias might have something interesting to say. Let's hit the read more and see what kind of wall of text he's provided us. All right. Biggest complaint was how they changed my baby, the hunting horn. At first, for the first couple hundred hours or so, I was so in love with it. The first few hundred hours, I really got to feel impactful. I sure hope so. Hunting horn is a high impact weapon. All right, got a big wake up hit. So no matter whether I was playing hammer or hunting horn, I provided something useful to those situations where we didn't have a GS or GL user. Slide beat was nice for the hyper armor and the ability to play whatever songs I had queued. And once I unlocked echo mode, woo, I was off to the races. But once the novelty wore off, I realized I didn't feel like a musician anymore. I didn't feel like I was conducting a symphony anymore. White, purple, white, green, double note flourish. God, I miss my flourish. Rise had decided that instead of being a musician, I should be breakdancing. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm still impactful. I do tons of damage. I did before in World. I provide a plethora of useful buffs to my allies. Buffing my followers and buddies can still be quite the DPS increase when solo, but it doesn't feel like it used to. That's it. Now that I have actual people to play with again, that's my one complaint I still have with the game. Zacharias, thank you for that long comment. Hashtag bring back my music, Capcom. I hear you. What this boils down to for me, what I'm getting out of this critique is that the weapon changed from one game to the next. And I get that. A lot of people don't like how weapons change from one game to the next. Valid criticism. I didn't like how Charge Blade changed from 4U to Gen Ultimate. I just stopped playing Charge Blade. That's a completely subjective critique. I'm not going to say anything for or against it because that's your experience. There you go. I love Hunting Horn. I've loved it in every game I played it in. And that's about as deep as I get on Hunting Horn. All right. Benjamin Mendy, K. Dole, 2706. The fact that Velkhana don't have his risen form and Seregios after all these years don't any additional forms makes me angry for real. Aside from maybe forgetting a few words in those sentences, I think that's a good point. Velkhana doesn't have a risen form. For me, Velkhana seems like it was just kind of tacked on to Rise Sunbreak, and I think Velkhana deserved better in Rise. I'm gonna agree with you on that. That is something that maybe Capcom dropped the ball on a little bit. So the lesson for Wilds is don't just give us a half-assed old monster. Bring them back and give them the full Wilds treatment. Get crunked. No Devil May Cry collab when we had a red orb monster that's supposed to be the devil and turns into the DMC5 logo during his ultimate attack. Just fuck my shit up, Capcom. Red orb monster that's supposed to be the devil. Yeah, we do have that, don't we? I think he's talking about Gaiasmagorm. I've never played Devil May Cry, but it has the word devil in the title, and Gaiasmagorm is the devil. You have to go down into the pits of hell to fight him. I'm pretty sure that's where Get Crunked is going with this. And yeah, no collab there. Unfortunate. We had a collab in World. That was kind of cool. It gave you the charge blade that didn't have a shield. I mean, you had a shield, but there was no shield. It's just like you had a fist, right? Blocking with like a ring or something. So that was kind of cool. Every time I played with that skin on my charge blade, I forgot how to use the weapon. Like visually, I didn't have a shield. So I'm like, oh, I can't push the shield button. Like I felt like I was using some new weird weapon and my hands just froze up and I forgot how to play charge blade. It's weird how the visual design of a weapon can impact how well I play that weapon, to the point where if you remove the shield from a charge blade, I forget how to play charge blade. It's very, very disturbing, the psychological mind games that they play with me. Good point. Should have had a collab there. By the way, Get Crunked has got a new video. I want you guys to check this out. Awesome video. Head over to his channel. Click on this video right here. In Defense of the Longsword. Awesome video. This guy makes better videos than I do. So if you're sick of my bullshit, go watch this video right here. Very cool. He put in a lot of work into this, and it's funny, informative, insightful. Definitely worth the 21 minutes and 33 seconds of your time. Pretty cool. Remy Rib. Sunbreak was my first G rank experience, so I don't have a lot of bad things to say about it. But I thought armor Qurious Crafting could have been executed a lot better instead of it being completely gotcha, so randomized. I think I would have liked it better if we could farm like skill essences or something from monsters that have them in anomalies and choose to sacrifice or append skill stats at our leisure. And of course, higher level anomaly grind was a slog, and I ran through it twice. But that's how the game is. I don't expect Capcom to do anything more than beef up monster HP and take me to One Shot City in the future. So yeah, the grind was was definitely a slog, the higher level anomalies. For me, it wasn't the anomaly grind itself so much as what I had to do in order to get the materials I needed for my weapon and armor augments. That was the part that was the real grind. But yeah, if you want to engage with every single special in the game, all 70 some specials, that's a slog too, because you got to rank up all those quests. Now, you don't have to rank them up from 0 to 300. There's a way you can do it where it's maybe, 10 rank ups per monster, but it's still 70 times 10 is 700 quests just to get access all your specials. So that's pretty rough too. The Qurious Crafting could have been executed better. I agree with you on that one. The randomization, it was boring for me because I would have to sit there for a half hour just clicking re-aug, try again, whatever. Up, A, right, down, A, down, whatever. Just like you get into this rhythm of pressing the buttons in order to do the next aug, instead of having it automatically take from your, they could have at least done that part better. So I just hit the button each time I want to re-aug. But the fact that it was completely random was annoying for sure. But I didn't mind it so much because I always viewed the Qurious augments as just little bonuses. A lot of people are building their whole set around the augments, and whether or not they can make their set is dependent completely on how good their augments are. And I think that's the wrong attitude to take with the augments. If something is random, then it should be seen as a bonus and not as a vital part of your set build. I think that's what Capcom intended. These are just nice little bonuses that you can get, just little perks. A lot of people, though, they see the option to get something amazing. This is what the Monster Hunter community does, right? They'll go into the game code and the data files and they'll find out what's the absolute best talisman that you could possibly get randomly. And they'll say, I've got to have that. If I don't have that, then my build isn't complete and I'm somehow less of a, I'm not playing optimally. I don't have the best thing I could get. And now I'm going to feel insufficient. I'm going to feel insecure. I'm going to feel less than because I don't have the best talisman. And that's just the wrong attitude to take whenever you have randomization in a game. It really is. You have to see the randomization as nice to have. And this leads directly into the conversation, which I won't go too in depth on right now, but it leads into the conversation. I think that merits its own video. Do we want the world randomization where decorations were randomized, or do we want the rise and the old school randomization where the talisman's randomized? Which one's worse, right? Because we can all agree randomization is not optimal. We all want to be in control of our own destiny, right? But if I had to choose between one or the other being random, I'd say make the talisman random because I can live with that. Making my decorations random means more grind and even more like if I have to play without a talisman, I have total control of the decorations that I have access to. I have total control of my build. But if I have to play without certain decorations simply because they didn't randomly drop as loot, there are far fewer builds I can make. It's much harder to optimize your build with random decorations than it is with random talismans. That's my view on that. So when we add in random Qurious augments on top of that, at some point you have to say, look, it's not about the augments. The game isn't about the augments anymore. They're just kind of nice to have bonuses. And that pisses off a lot of people. I get that. My own personal opinion, if it's random, don't worry about it. And that's what scares me about random decorations. Now all your decorations are random. Oh, don't worry about decorations at all. Come on, decorations are the lifeblood of any build. Okay? Unless you start putting better armor skills on my armor, don't take my decorations away from me. So there you go. iixxion has good game. Maps could have featured more vertical elements. Why wasn't there a monster on top of the pyramid and been slightly larger? I think they were just barely big enough for 3 monsters, but felt even smaller due to the game's faster traversal speed. Agree with your points. I think the vertical elements thing is a good critique. In terms of game design, we did have a lot of vertical elements in the maps themselves. My criticism that I would offer is that we didn't have monsters taking advantage of those vertical elements. And so when you say, all right, why wasn't there a monster on top of the pyramid? That's a great question. If we had a Rajang sitting up there, or one that would flee to the top of the pyramid, and then you have to climb up the pyramid while he's shooting lasers down at you, and you've got to figure out a way to get up there and dodge his lasers and then get up there, and now you're on top of the pyramid fighting him, and then when he does his spin attack, he knocks you off and you go flying off the pyramid again. How frustratingly awesome would that be? Think about it. Maybe that's why they didn't put it in the game. Monsters chasing you vertically on that map would get very frustrating, but would still be awesome. It would change the dynamics of the hunt significantly. So I think that could have been really cool. The maps did feel small sometimes. I wouldn't say always. For me, they didn't feel that small, but I think you're right. If they did feel small, it was because of the traversal speed, for sure. All right, 2 critiques from Soulswan. Just 2, how empty the environment feels in the damn Petalace mechanic. Been going back to older game, I just noticed how dead and small rise maps feel of the older maps. It is open, you can explore in a straight line without anything stopping you, but after going back to the older one, it just felt dead and small compared to how it was. The feeling just amplified when you're in the jungle location compared to others. The Petalace mechanic just explains itself. Better to not just have it at all, in all honesty. A lot of people critique the Petalace. I didn't have issues with the Petalace. I accepted it as a game mechanic that they decided to put in and took advantage of it. A lot of people don't like taking advantage of it. That's fine. Too much effort to collect spirit birds. That's fine. I would say this, if you don't like the Petalace mechanic, great. But then if you also think the maps are empty and lifeless and you just run straight to the monster, well, then why don't you like the Petalace mechanic, right? If you just want to run straight to the monster, who cares if the maps are empty and lifeless, right? Either you want to take your time and enjoy, stop and smell the flowers, stop and smell the roses. You want to take in the environment, or you don't. And if you want to just run straight to the monster and fight, then yeah, the Petalace can be annoying. But then at that point, who cares what the maps are like, right? Just put everyone in an arena and fight. I thought the maps were cool. Could they have had more life in them? Sure. But at what point do you get bogged down with, just taking in the scenery versus going for the monster and actually getting the quest done? And that's the trade-off that the developers have to figure out. What are we here for? How long are we here to do it? And for Rise, the answer to those questions was go fight the monster. We don't have a lot of time. And in that case, yeah, why use the Petalace? Well, from the developer's perspective, the Petalace is optional. If you want to get yourself a nice boost, you fill up your Petalace. If you don't, then you can just run straight to the monster and fight. So another optional bonus, kind of like the Qurious Crafting, a nice little optional boost if you want it. That's the way I saw Petalace and the Qurious stuff. But, if you put it in the game, people are going to want to optimize it. You got to be careful as a developer. What kind of little bonuses are the players going to take for granted and just want them, straight up want them, rather than going out of your way to optionally get it? Blazing Mad Dog. Llamas. I want llamas. Fair critique. Antonio Cunningham. Okay, I do not like Wyvern Riding. If it wasn't in the game, Rise Sunbreak would clearly be a perfect game to me. It's not just the riding mechanics, but everything involved with it. If you can ride Elder Dragons, then they're not as powerful as previous games suggest they were. The whole point of Ender Dragons, where they couldn't be controlled. Also, I hate that when I was meant fight a monster was stop fighting me, run halfway across the map to start the Wyvern Riding mechanic. It was so rage-inducing. This is why I prefer fighting at an arena where Moses can't initiate this mechanic. Moses. Yeah, look, if you don't like Wyvern Riding, I get that. I love Wyvern Riding. That's fine. You make an awesome point about the Elder Dragons. Wyvern Riding and Elder Dragon should not be allowed. That's an excellent point. You cannot put Elder Dragons in traps. You cannot capture Elder Dragons. You should not be allowed to Wyvern Ride an Elder Dragon. It doesn't make sense within the lore of the game. If Elder Dragons were so powerful and uncontrollable, a wire bug rope thing should not be able to capture them, and you should not be able to control them. That is something I'd never thought of before. Excellent critique. 100% agree. Should not have been allowed. That would really make them, set them apart as something special that they're supposed to be. Awesome. 2 replies to this. Elder Dragons aren't categorized that way because of their power. The Elder Dragon category exists for monsters that don't fit into other categories. Most of them do end up being extremely strong, but look at Chameleos. That little guy just wants to spit poison and eat bugs. That's how they've always been portrayed. Elder Dragons change the environment. A lot of the story revolves around them. So yeah, them being powerful have always been a thing. So Wyvern Riding them ruins the lore and immersion. I agree with Antonio Cunningham on this 100%. It does. It made them seem like less than Elder Dragons. Good catch. All right. Kaisaheld. Number 1, having to collect spirit bugs every time. 2, other monsters are no longer a threat. When they see each other, they give you Wyvern Riding and leave. 3, anomaly crafting being additional RNG on top of the charms. 4, artificial rise of difficulty by making Curio monster immune to traps. That should be a trait of Elder Dragon alone. Really killed the Elder Dragon vibe for me. Dislike the 0 color of the game, washed out, and the remake of old maps instead of giving us something new. But I still think just behind Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, Sunbreak was the best Monster Hunter yet. And I like that Wild seems to copy lots of Rise inventions. Let's just pray for Switch skills. Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, you guys put some thought into this. Spear bugs, we already talked about that. Either you love them or you hate them or you don't care. Other monsters are no longer a threat. This was downplayed a lot, for sure. There were situations where they did kind of annoy you, but once the other monster attacked them, boom, they were ready to ride. So that probably triggered a little too quickly. Anomaly crafting being more RNG. People just don't like RNG on Monster Hunter, it seems. The artificial rise of difficulty. Now, Curio monsters, the anomaly monsters were not immune to traps. They were immune to capture. You could still trap them. A lot of people forgot about that because you can't capture them. You forget, oh, well, let's just use traps on them and beat the snot out of them. Even myself, I forget to trap them because you can't capture them. So what's the point of a trap? But yeah, you can trap them for sure. Absolutely. And especially when you knock them out of anomaly status, they'll stay in the trap a lot longer. Definitely use your traps on them to control them. Yeah, it works really well, especially in multiplayer. So don't forget about the traps. But the fact that you can't capture them, they're kind of like half elders if you think about it. And I think they did well with that. The fact that you can trap them, but you can't capture them, whereas elders won't even go in the trap at all. The color of the game washed out. I don't know about that. Maybe some of the maps were a little washed out, especially at nighttime. But overall, I find Rise to be far more colorful and vibrant than World. Absolutely. Again, something very subjective, how you feel about the color palette that a particular game chooses. 3 replies to that. Not immune to traps. There you go. Only apexes and elders. Cannot be captured, have to be slain. 60% of my all-time death in Monster Hunter either due to trying to clutch claw instead of playing the game or due to monsters showing up in the middle of the fight, stunning me with their roars, getting me killed. The damage is already done. Usually, even if I decide to carry poop, you're right, I didn't formulate it correctly, but they can be trapped, but what I meant was captured. I think it's an artificial mechanic, and it's, for me, something only Elder Dragons or gigantic monsters that don't fit in trap should have. Okay, that's fair. Keys held, makes sense. I only ever use CC during certain openings and never had much issue with multiple monsters, etc., etc. Kyle Corrales. I didn't care for the siege mechanic. It was way too hectic, and while it was possible to do solo, it wasn't meant for that, and it shows. Also, hot take, but I'm not big on gimmicks to begin with, and I didn't like how the wirebug affected the gameplay. Give me my sweet canine companion for travel, but the wirebug to me was too much of a gimmick and distracted from the core gameplay mechanics in favor of the new mechanics around the bugs. The siege mechanic, meaning I can't even remember what they're called now, honestly. I haven't played them in 2 years. Didn't care for them. I don't think most people did, and that's why they did not bring them back in Sunbreak. So there you go. Here is a criticism, J-Flow Zen. They removed the arm wrestling, capital L. Fair, very strong critique. I'm right there with you. Herusatiowan. By visual, anomaly monsters look really ugly. Imagine designing some monsters with all those wonderful color palette and they just turn all red because of the anomaly. And by gameplay, oh god, it took so long to reach AR A300. Switch scroll is such a fun idea that lets you use 2 different skill sets at the same hunts, but some armor skills just ruin that concept by forcing you to use for red scroll or blue scroll to activate specific effects, turning that brilliant idea to a gimmick. Yeah, I like that. I like these. You could have done something better for the Anomaly Monsters Capcom. Yeah, just making them red and making them, it does. It makes them uglier. You're right, 100%. I got nothing to add to that. Switch scrolling is a fun idea. And yeah, it does kind of lock you in. Some of these skills like dereliction or mail of hellfire or whatever, where the effect is only on red versus only on blue, you get locked into one set of skills. And so I think they meant that as the trade-off. All right, so you get this awesome bonus, but the trade-off is now you are locked into one set of switch skills. Well, the problem with that is you already have a trade-off built into the skill, like dereliction. The trade-off is you lose health, right? Or Mail of Hellfire. The trade-off with using the blue is that using one of the scrolls is that you now have lower armor or you have lower resists. So they already have trade-offs built in. So why limit us to one scroll or the other? It's good. That's good. It's fair. I didn't have an issue with it myself personally, but I can see where you're coming from on that. This is Doe Jersey. Mildly annoyed that SNS switch skills are just sort of mid. I like the variety I get with other weapons and Rise. They just sort of did a mediocre job for SNS. This didn't make me put the game down, and maybe it's because they wanted to transition SNS players to other weapons, but yeah, mildly annoying when all you want to do is use the smallest and most unassuming weapon. I'm not a Sword and Shield fan. I have played it quite a bit. I didn't have an issue with the Sword and Shield switch skills. I thought it was a good variety. I honestly thought it was a good variety. I thought they fit in with the weapon well. And the idea of Sword and Shield is to simplify rather than complexify. And I think the switch skills did a good job of that. I think they actually might be too complicated for what the Sword and Shield has been in the past. But if you're a fan of Sword and Shield and you want to step it up and get flashy like the other weapons, more flashy even than what you got with Rise, I get that. Just didn't see it myself. Both of Sword and Shield's 2 Wirebug moves are absolutely busted. I have no idea what you're talking about. Daniel Art. They do have some powerful switch skills. Yeah, again, so it's a matter of perspective on that. Either you like the switch skills you got or you don't. There's no objective right answer. The Rampage, there it is. MMO, VT1JH. Didn't like the Rampage. They're called Rampage quests. Yeah. See, a lot of people didn't like Rampage quests. I appreciate the attempt and it's okay, but I don't like it. There you go, right? This is personal opinion. I share that, almost that exact opinion. I appreciate the attempt, but didn't care for them. Now, a lot of these critiques, you'll notice for Rise, they're not critiques of things that break the game or critiques of things that frustrate people to no end. We've had a couple, but not very many. They're categorically different from the critiques that I and many of you had for Monster Hunter World Iceborne. They're categorically different. The critiques that we have for Rise are far more subjective. They're about, well, I like this mechanic or I didn't like this mechanic. And that's, it's kind of like you like Clutch Claw or you don't like Clutch Claw for Monster Hunter World. So I think a lot of the gameplay mechanics in World were good. I was indifferent about Clutch Claw for World Iceborne, but the critiques that I had were like these kinds of things frustrate the hell out of me. So there were interface design issues. They were more interface design issues. They were pathing issues. They were things that were fundamental to the game, like the tracking. Like, why are we even doing this? Things like that I think are in a different tier or a different type of critique than the critiques you see for Rise. Most of us agree that Rise is a great game. We just disagree with some of the design choice, the gameplay design choices, and not all of them. We each have our gameplay design pet peeve. For some people, it's the Rampage. For some people, it's the Petalace. For others, our switch skills weren't as good as the next guy's switch skills. For some, it's the grind, the anomaly grind. For some, it's the randomization. But none of these are game-breaking or experience-busting critiques. We still enjoy the game. We still think it's a great game. We still, 99% of the time, or in fact, 100% of the time, are enjoying the game because we just avoid these things, right? The critiques that I have for World are critiques that you cannot avoid. There's no way to get around them. There's no way to just, I'm just going to ignore that part of the game because they permeate every aspect of the game. So that's why I think they're fundamentally different types of critiques. Like if you don't like Rampages and Sunbreak, you just don't play Rampages. You don't miss out on anything, right? If you don't like Qurious Crafting, Well, so you don't sit there and try to optimize it. You just get 1 or 2 bonus skills and you're good. Or just go for slots, right? Get those extra slots on your armor and then you can fill them in with decorations. There's ways to avoid the annoying things, right? You don't like the automatic Wyvern Riding, turn it off. You can turn that setting off in the options. So it's just like a stun or a trip or something. You know, once that Wyvern Riding kicks in, he's just standing there for a few minutes so you can beat the snot out of him some more. You don't have to Wyvern Ride at all in the game. You don't like the anomaly grind? Well, tough shit. You're going to have to do it. Or you can just stop playing and not do the anomaly grind. So I think they're fundamentally different. I think the critiques of Sunbreak you can just largely avoid. You don't like Petalace? Don't collect the Spirit Birds. Shin Malistat. I'm having a difficult time getting into Rise due to the lack of story. Completely subjective. I find the exact opposite for my Monster Hunter games. Story gets me out of the game. I don't want story in my Monster Hunter. I just want to go do quests and fight monsters. I don't care at all about story. When I have to read dialogue and just click A, or B, or X all the time, try to back out, skip dialogue, skip cutscenes, that takes me out of the game. That breaks my immersion. Cutscenes are not immersive for me. So, you know, I think I'm different from most people in that respect, but I just can't stand them. Daniil Art, Monster Hunter never had a good story. It only had storytelling potential, which was never used for anything. So I don't see how this time is different. Yeah, old school Monster Hunter didn't have strong story. And that's what I liked about Monster Hunter. So again, totally subjective. It's the difference between Rise and World. I can easily play through World as it presents a specific challenge before me, but I always have the option of farming for something else, but that one challenge is required to progress. With Rise, it's entirely open-ended, and choosing which to address first, then second, then third, etc. is exhausting. It's not entirely open-ended. We have urgent quests. We have key quests. They're there. So you don't have to keep choosing what to do next. Just do your key quests and advance through the urgents. But, you know, that said, some people like to be told exactly what to do next, and that's fine. I totally get that. I'm not one of those people. And so if a game can give you the option to do it one way and the option to do it the other way, that would be great. Daniela Art, Wyvern Riding is terrible, and the game is significantly worse for it. That and the overpowered nature of some Silkbind moves, which makes everyone want to spam them, changing the identity of certain weapons. Okay, I get that. However, you don't have to spam them, do you? You can still play the weapon the way you want. Just because everybody else is doing it doesn't mean you have to do it, right? We had this discussion with the hunting horn controversy for Monster Hunter Wilds. Just because everyone else might bring a pocket horn doesn't mean you have to bring a pocket horn, right? How other people choose to engage with the game shouldn't, and doesn't, in fact, affect how you choose to engage with the game. Lands 19, hate how elemental damage are so insane compared to raw. That's a fair assessment. Raw Charge Blade is very hard to be effective with unless you're fighting Valstrax or unless you're using a very specific playstyle and have a very specific build. And yeah, with bow, you know, elemental can do a bit more damage than raw bow. And then a discussion about World and Iceborne, raw versus element. But I will agree that elemental was boosted to the extremes in Rise. And so for the people who like raw builds, yeah, we kind of got the shaft. We did. I think that's a fair critique. Dopey Dopes. I'd buy Spirit Birds, a one-way ticket to game design hell. Also Qurious Crafting, and that leave a like system can just be removed. Also no Poogie, disgusting. Yeah, that's a good point. The leave a thumbs up to like your hunting partners. Like you just do it instinctively anyway for everyone, you know? You either do them all or you don't do any of them. I mean, how many of you guys out there are liking one guy on the quest, but not the other ones? Really? That's kind of a waste. No Poogie, another fair critique. But again, look, the best we can do for criticizing Rise is, it didn't have a Poogie. It didn't have arm wrestling, right? Come on, guys. ZX Mac. Rise sucks ass at launch because of incomplete story, easy as fuck, low rank and high rank. Minor offense would be Narwa being the most viable monster for Endgame. Sunbreak with complete title updates. Major offense being collabs too few, far too many microtransactions than free event quest. No alpha beta sets. Minor offense being anomaly grind, spending too much time talking to the elf guy for random talisman. Yeah, the talisman melding was annoying for sure. They can simplify that interface. Incomplete story at launch. We got the updates. We weren't sitting there too long without updates. And you can just start playing another weapon and learning that too. I didn't have an issue back then. Again, but subjective experience. Was the game too easy? Again, very subjective. Very, very subjective. I've done entire videos on whether the game is too easy. Sunbreak with complete title updates. Too few collabs. People love collabs. I don't care for them myself, but I hear your concern. More collabs, Capcom. That's what the people want. Give it to them. Too many microtransactions. I don't know. We got a ton of event quests. So I'm not sure what that's all about. We were getting event quests at least once a week. It's at one point. Microtransactions were not in your face. You had to go offline to buy them. So that didn't bother me at all. Alpha beta sets, we have a ton of sets. Do we really need both versions? The reason why we don't have alpha sets and beta sets is because of the Qurious Crafting. You can do slot crafting, Qurious augment for slots, and now you've got your beta set. That's how you do it. Would you rather just have alpha beta and no Qurious? I'm curious. That actually sounds like what we're going to get in Wilds. I imagine we're going to get something like that in Wilds. Minor offense being anomaly grind, for me, that's my major offense. That's my one major offense. Good points, though. Me who look at MH Wilds packages, yeah, Benjamin Mendy, Kadol. Yeah, look at those $70, $90, $110 microtransactions. That's macro transactions right there. That's crazy. Bringing money back. I just wish Lance didn't get shafted in Sunbreak. Get the pun there? Lance shafted in Sunbreak. A huge discussion about Lance getting shafted. You guys can go to the comments and read this. I personally didn't think Lance got shafted. I think Lance is fun as hell to play. But, Lance users, like Hunting Horn users, when you change their weapon, they feel slighted. They feel disappointed. And as a Chargeblade main in 4U, when Gen Ultimate fucked that shit up and gave us the shittiest Chargeblade, I just stopped playing it. I was no longer a Chargeblade main. Did I take it personally? No, I did not. I just played a different weapon. But, again, that's my perspective on it. If you identify strongly with a weapon and Capcom makes changes to your weapon, you're going to feel personally attacked because you're identifying with the weapon itself. Is that healthy? I don't think that's healthy. You do you. I'll do me. We'll all do ourselves. However, I don't think it's healthy. And I think you're going to have a bad time if you come to it from that perspective. Because these are different games. Wilds is a totally different game. They're going to change your weapon and you might not like it. All right. And the last comment is actually a repeat of Zacharias. He must have double posted this. And it just goes right back to what I was saying. Zacharias was disappointed that they changed his hunting horn. And that's fine. You can complain about that all day long. I get it. You like one version better than the other. Tell Capcom the version you like best. Tell Capcom the specific things you like best about your weapon, what you feel the identity of that weapon should be, so they know how to make it awesome for you and everyone else. Not as many criticisms as I thought we'd get based on the way people just tear into Rise. It really comes down to, we don't like Spirit Birds, we don't like Qurious Crafting, we don't like Wyvern Riding, we don't like the lifelessness of the maps. These are game design elements that can all be avoided. If you think the maps are lifeless, play World. I thought the maps in World were just as lifeless as the ones in Rise, so I'm not sure what that's all about. You can avoid all of these things, though. You don't have to Qurious Craft. Capcom is not punishing you if you don't Qurious Craft. You can make extremely powerful sets without Qurious Crafting. Your armor, right? Weapons, you're going to need to augment those weapons. You need those bonuses in order to do Endgame, in order to do you don't need them. They're really nice bonuses to get once you're fighting specials. The grind, you can't avoid the grind. And again, that's why that is my number one and only my own personal complaint about Sunbreak. You cannot avoid the anomaly grind if you want to play the actual endgame, and the actual endgame is the specials. And I think they made the specials too inaccessible for the average player. Okay? I guess endgame is not for the average player. That's what I'm hearing from Capcom. The message you're sending to me is endgame is not for the average player. And if that's the message you're sending, I accept that. For myself, I'm not the average player, so it's accessible to me. It was annoying, but I think it should be a little more accessible to the rest of the player base. That's what I'm saying. People didn't like the changes to their weapons. You're going to get that with every single Monster Hunter game. Some people are not going to like the changes made to their weapons. So that's not something unique to Rise. Things that were unique to Rise are the gameplay mechanics that are unique to Rise. Spirit birds, wire bugs, wyvern riding, and map traversal. Those are the big ones. And you love them or you hate them. A Rampage, you know, things unique to Rise. My bottom line for this is these are all valid complaints, but they're all 100% subjective. And they're things that can largely be avoided. They're things that aren't being forced upon you. I would even say that they're less forced upon you than Clutch Claw is. You know, Clutch Claw was, again, not forced upon you per se, but was harder to avoid, you know, and you are, you know, some people like to say you're penalized for not using it. You're penalized more, I think, for not using Clutch Claw than you're penalized for not doing the things in Sunbreak. But, you know, maybe the Petalace, the health boost is what most people complain about, honestly. It's not the Petalace itself, it's the health boost. People want their easy health boost back. They want easy max health boost back. That's what it really comes down to, right? It's not the fact that you got to collect spirit birds. It's not the fact that the Petalace at all exists. It's people want their max health boost easily. Let's just be honest about it. And Capcom said, you're not getting the easy max health boost. Oh, but wait, you will, because you're going to eat for bird caller and you're going to run a route to get your max health boost that doesn't take any more time to do in the quest. I've made videos on this too. So subjectively, I get it. You feel like it's too hard to do, fine. But objectively, the lack of max health boost can be completely avoided, meaning you can get your max health boost with no extra effort on your part. I got videos on that. Sorry, guys. So that's what I got for you. That's what you got for you. Those were your critiques, not mine. Thank you, everyone who contributed to this video. I did name you all, I hope. And if I didn't, apologies for that. And if I missed a critique, you can always put comments on this one down here with more critiques of Rise or World or Wilds. We already know a lot about Wilds. Spoil it for us. Put your critiques of Wilds down there too. We're getting the open beta. You can put your critiques of the open beta down there. You can't please everybody all the time. And if it comes down to a game play mechanic that you don't like, if you can avoid it in game, then it's just whatever. If you can't avoid it in game, then yeah, I think it's something that needs to be addressed. You know, and obviously Capcom is listening, or else they would have gone all in on the Rampage quest for Sunbreak, and instead they completely dropped Rampage for Sunbreak. So they hear you. All right, don't think for 1 minute they're not listening. They're listening to everything that you say. So say it loud, say it proud. I'll see you guys in the next one.